A hulking military vehicle swayed precariously on the edge of a collapsed bridge, rain pouring down around it as a violent typhoon battered the region. Logan Hayes, an unassuming American living quietly in the Philippines, suddenly took control, revealing a set of skills that no ordinary delivery driver should have. A group of children, stranded by the storm, were depending on the life-saving medicine only this truck could bring them. By the next morning, word would spread. Military officials would disclose the true identity of the enigmatic foreigner who had been living among them in plain sight for years. Hey everyone, welcome to Life Tales. Let's dive in. Logan's grip tightened around the control levers of the enormous military truck, his knuckles pale with tension as the muddy floodwaters crept higher around the tires. Behind him, cries for help rang out from the injured. Ahead, nestled in the mountains, was the village of San Miguel, home to children whose time was running dangerously short. Failure was simply not on the table. We're not making it through. Sergeant Ramos yelled above the roar of the wind. The bridge is completely gone. Logan remained silent. His mind was racing, running calculations on angles, pressure points, and balance, thinking through options that no one in Malina, the small town he'd called home for 5 years, even knew he was capable of. Just trust me, he said quietly, already adjusting the high-tech controls with a precision born from experience. I've done this kind of thing before. Flashback, 2 days earlier. Logan was doing his usual delivery rounds through Malina when Typhoon Masaki made landfall, unleashing chaos with devastating power across the islands. Now, just 48 hours later, he was behind the wheel of one of the most advanced military recovery trucks in all of Southeast Asia, attempting something no one else dared. As the vehicle threatened to slide into oblivion, Logan closed his eyes for a brief second. One more mission, he whispered. Just one more. Logan Hayes had mastered the art of disappearing. For 5 years, he'd lived quietly in the coastal town of Malinaw, keeping to himself, and that's exactly how he liked it. At 52, he ran a humble delivery service, operating a single, well-kept truck that moved everything from fruits to construction materials up and down the coastline. Locals knew him as dependable and on time. Friendly, but distant. Always polite, never intrusive. Morning, Mr. Logan. Anna called from her small store as he loaded boxes of mangoes. Nice weather today, huh? Logan gave her a brief smile that barely touched his eyes. As long as the skies stay clear. Heard there's a typhoon forming to the east, Lorna from town hall says it might be a big one. Radio said it's still a few days off. Anna made the sign of the cross, frowning. They always say a few days, then boom. Just like that bad one in Taklin back in 2013. She shook her head, remembering. Logan hoisted the final crate into the truck with smooth, practiced movements. I'll get these to the market before noon, he said, steering the conversation away. As he drove the winding coastal road, his gaze kept drifting eastward toward the sea. The storm, now named Masaki, was forecasted to lose strength before landfall. But something deep in his gut, something trained over years of experience, told him that was wishful thinking. And Logan had learned to trust that feeling. What no one in Malinaw knew was that Logan wasn't just some quiet foreigner with a broken past. He had once served in some of the most dangerous and demanding theaters on earth, Afghanistan, Iraq, the Horn of Africa, operating specialized transport vehicles under conditions most wouldn't survive. His past wasn't just secret. It was buried. And he intended to keep it that way. Especially the last mission. The one that still haunted his dreams. Logan's modest house overlooked the harbor. That evening, he sat quietly on his porch, watching the fishing boats return earlier than usual. The air had taken on a heaviness, thick and still, the kind that only came before a major storm. His phone buzzed. Paolo from the hardware store was on the line. Mr. Logan, can you do a special delivery tomorrow? Town hall needs emergency supplies before the storm rolls in. Thought it wasn't hitting until later this week. Forecast changed fast. Now they're saying it could make landfall tomorrow night. They just raised the alert level. Logan exhaled slowly. I'll be there at sunrise. After hanging up, he stepped back inside and opened his closet. Behind his plain clothes sat an old, locked metal footlocker. One he hadn't touched in half a decade. His hand hovered over it. Then, without a word, he turned away. Not tonight. Let the ghosts sleep. By sunrise, everything had changed. Typhoon Masaki had grown stronger overnight, upgraded to a super typhoon, and was now expected to make landfall by evening. Logan dropped off the emergency supplies at the town hall, where staff and volunteers were scrambling to finish preparations. That's it for me, he told Paolo. I'm heading back to tie things down before it gets worse. On the drive home, it was clear the storm was already starting to show its teeth. The wind lashed the coastline, rain pounded the road, and debris skidded across the asphalt. On the radio, a stream of bilingual emergency alerts filled the airwaves, warning low-lying areas to evacuate immediately. Logan was less than 10 minutes from his house when he saw them, military vehicles clustered at a checkpoint, including two that bore U.S. military markings. One of them made his stomach clench, a monstrous 8-wheeled LVSR recovery truck, an all-terrain beast he knew better than anyone should. The convoy was stalled at a roadblock, with local police rerouting traffic. Logan parked on the roadside, watching as officers spoke urgently to the soldiers. Even from where he stood, he could read the tension in their movements. And even though he told himself to stay out of it, his legs moved before his mind could stop them. He walked toward the checkpoint. "What's going on?" he asked a local officer he recognized. "Landslide hit San Miguel Mountain area," the officer replied grimly. "The whole village is cut off. School's full of kids. Clinic too. It's bad." Logan knew the place. Remote. High up. Only reachable by one narrow mountain road. If that route was blocked. Nearby, a Philippine Army captain was in discussion with a U.S. officer in fatigues, probably part of the Joint Disaster Response Team. "That road's no good either," the captain said, pointing to a map. "Too steep for standard transports. The LVSR might make it, but..." "But what?" the American pressed. "Our guys aren't fully trained on that machine. It just arrived last month." Logan turned and began heading back to his truck. Not your business, he told himself. That life's over. But something in him tightened. And he couldn't shake the feeling he'd been here before. Then, his truck's radio crackled to life with a new emergency update. Typhoon Masaki now expected to make landfall within 6 hours. All emergency operations are ramping up. San Miguel Mountain area reports a severe medical shortage at the rural clinic. 12 children experiencing respiratory distress. Logan's grip on the steering wheel tightened instinctively. The moment he heard the word children, something inside him clenched. Unwanted memories surged forward, images from a different place, a different time. Afghanistan. That village. The mission that hadn't ended the way it should have. Not again, he murmured under his breath. Before he had time to second-guess himself, Logan was already walking back toward the cluster of military vehicles. The conversation among the officers had grown more urgent. "Sir, with respect, we've got to make the attempt," a young Philippine Army sergeant insisted. "I went through the basics in training. I can get it there." "That truck cost $15 million, Sergeant," the American officer replied, not unkindly. "We haven't put it through anything this rugged yet." Logan approached, face unreadable. "Problem with the rig?" he asked, casually enough to pass as just curious. The captain turned toward him, clearly irritated by the interruption. "This is official military business, sir." Logan motioned toward the LVSR with a calm nod. That machine was built for exactly this kind of situation. Ever seen the mountain passes in Afghanistan? These hills don't compare. The American officer raised an eyebrow. You know this equipment? Logan gave a half shrug. Read up on it. A deliberate understatement. Before anyone could press him further, a new report crackled in over the comms. A second landslide had been triggered nearby. The tremor they felt now wasn't from that distant collapse, it was the storm itself, pounding the coastline with increasing force. We move now, the captain said firmly. Sergeant Ramos, do you still think you can drive it? Ramos nodded, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Yes, sir. I'll do my best. Logan stood back and watched as the young sergeant climbed into the cockpit. He knew that look all too well, brave determination wrapped around barely contained panic. Moments later, the LVSR roared to life, but it was clear the sergeant was struggling. The gears clunked out of rhythm. The truck jerked forward, front wheels dropping abruptly into a drainage ditch. Stop! Stop the vehicle, the captain shouted. The sergeant tried to back out, but the ground was already too soft. The more he worked the controls, the deeper the wheels sank into the mud. Logan couldn't watch any longer. He stepped back toward the group, addressing the captain with a firm tone. He's going to fry the transmission before that thing gets out of there. Got a better idea, civilian? The American officer snapped, clearly under pressure. Logan inhaled deeply. He knew what he was about to do would tear away 5 years of carefully built anonymity. Let me give it a shot. The captain eyed him skeptically. You? I've had some experience, Logan replied, his voice steady. After a short but tense exchange between the officers, they gave him the go-ahead. As Logan climbed into the truck, the sergeant shifted aside, visibly relieved. Mind if I take over? Logan asked, not unkindly. Go ahead, sir. Just be careful, it's tricky. Settling into the driver's seat, Logan's hands moved with instinctive precision across the controls. It was all muscle memory now. The layout, the weight balance, even the subtle feel of the throttle under pressure, it all came back to him like he'd never left. He activated the differential locks, adjusted the suspension settings, and applied controlled power to the wheels. The LVSR responded instantly, almost like it remembered him too. With practiced ease, Logan backed the vehicle out of the ditch and repositioned it on solid ground. The team around him stood in silence, watching in disbelief. How the hell did you? The sergeant started to ask. Logan didn't respond. Instead, he rolled down the window and turned to the captain. So what exactly is waiting in San Miguel? The captain's expression shifted. The skepticism had faded, replaced by something closer to respect. There are 32 kids sheltering in a school that's being used as an evacuation center. The clinic's overwhelmed, and there are military families stranded, too. We've got medicine and emergency supplies. If we don't get them through now, they won't survive the night. Logan nodded, thinking through the terrain and possibilities. The main route's completely wiped out. Yeah. Landslide took out at least 500 meters of it. There's an old logging road on the East Ridge, Logan offered. Probably hasn't been cleared in years, but this truck can handle it. The American officer stepped closer, narrowing his eyes. And how exactly do you know that trail exists? I've delivered to every mountain village around here, Logan said with a shrug. Comes with the job. Then, with a clarity that surprised even himself, he added. I can get your supplies through. But we've got to move. Now. 20 minutes later, the LVSR was loaded with essential cargo, medicine, water purification gear, emergency food supplies. A compact team would ride with Logan, Sergeant Ramos, a military medic named Dr. Lin, and Lieutenant Kim, the U.S. liaison officer. As they made final checks and strapped everything down, Lieutenant Kim approached Logan. Mr. Hayes, I've got to ask, how does a guy who runs a delivery route in the provinces know how to operate a machine like that? Logan was tightening the last strap on a crate. I've handled some heavy machinery before. This isn't just any equipment, Kim said. From what I saw back there, you've had serious training. Logan locked eyes with him. Maybe. But does it matter right now? Does it matter right now? The lieutenant paused, studying Logan's face. Maybe not, he admitted. But I can't shake the feeling there's a lot more to your story than you're letting on. Logan offered a faint smile. Everyone's got a past, Lieutenant. Some chapters are better left closed. The downpour only intensified as the LVSR rolled out. Roads were becoming rivers, and ordinary vehicles wouldn't have made it more than a few hundred meters. But Logan drove with the calm assurance of someone who knew the limits, and strengths, of the machine beneath him. They made steady progress until they reached the foothills. The logging trail Logan remembered was still there, but nature had done its best to reclaim it. Overgrowth choked the path, and recent rains had turned sections into slick, uneven mud traps. We should head back, Dr. Lin said after they jolted through a particularly rough patch. Wait until the worst of the storm passes. Logan didn't take his eyes off the road. Those kids don't have that kind of time. Ramos, sitting beside him, watched with open admiration as Logan effortlessly maneuvered around obstacles and through unstable terrain. Sir, where'd you learn to drive like that? You're better than the guys who trained us. Logan didn't reply. He stayed focused, guiding the vehicle up a steep, rain-slicked incline. The wheels slipped briefly, then regained their grip with a grunt of torque and traction. As they gained elevation, the radio signal grew patchy. Fragmented reports confirmed what Logan had already guessed. Typhoon Masaki had hit land ahead of schedule and was now hammering the coast with its full force. About 3 hours into the journey, they hit a major setback. A portion of the road had been completely washed away. A gaping 15-foot void yawned ahead of them, bordered by a steep drop on one side. That's a dead end, Lieutenant Kim said grimly. No way we're getting across that. Logan studied the scene in silence, eyes scanning the landscape, measuring possibilities. We're crossing it. Seriously? That's not a gap you can just roll over. Logan pointed to a pile of large, downed trees nearby. We'll build a bridge. Without waiting for approval, Logan activated the LVSR's onboard crane system, a feature he clearly knew like the back of his hand. He guided the arm with confident precision, positioning the massive logs across the gap with the ease of someone who had done it before. The others watched in stunned silence as he operated the hydraulic controls like a surgeon with his tools. Mr. Hayes, Lieutenant Kim said quietly as they worked, you're not just a delivery guy, are you? Logan fastened the last support beam in place. Let's stick to the task at hand. The makeshift bridge looked fragile, but Logan trusted the machine, and his own judgment. After giving his passengers clear instructions, he guided the LVSR forward, inch by inch. The logs groaned beneath the weight, but held firm. They made it across. Ramos let out a whistle of disbelief. That was unreal. Where'd you learn that? Before Logan could brush it off, Kim stepped in. Give him space, Sergeant. We're not done yet. Logan gave the lieutenant a quick nod of appreciation. Something had shifted between them, mutual respect quietly taking root. The final leg to San Miguel was brutal. Mudslides had reshaped the hills, blocking paths and forcing them to backtrack twice to find passable terrain. Darkness had fully settled by then, and the only light came from their high beams slicing through the sheets of rain. We're almost there, Logan said, spotting distant flickers of light through the downpour. Less than a kilometer. Then it happened. Without warning, the soaked hillside beside them collapsed, sending a wave of earth and debris across the path. Logan reacted instantly, yanking the wheel to avoid the heart of the slide. But a glancing hit from the mudflow sent the LVSR skidding toward the edge of a ravine. He fought for control, calling on every lesson from his past. The truck tipped dangerously, one of its front wheels hanging over open air. Everyone out. Logan barked. Now. We can't leave the supplies behind. Dr. Lin protested. We're not, Logan snapped, his voice suddenly sharp, commanding. I need to shift the weight. Move, now. That's an order. The others obeyed instinctively. Whatever Logan's civilian title was, his tone left no room for argument. Once the vehicle was lighter, Logan began the delicate process of backing it up, applying power and steering adjustments with the kind of control that only came from years of experience under fire. Bit by bit, he pulled the LVSR away from the edge and back onto firm ground. When the others returned, something had changed in their expressions. No one said a word about the way he barked orders like a seasoned officer. But the looks in their eyes said it all. They knew. 20 minutes later, they rolled into San Miguel. The village was barely holding together. People moved in a daze, overwhelmed by fear, exhaustion, and too little help. Medical staff scrambled to triage patients. Children clustered together in the school building on the hill, the only structure that looked like it might survive the night. Logan quietly joined the unloading efforts, keeping to the background as supplies were handed out and urgent needs met. A local doctor approached Dr. Lin, her voice breaking as she gestured toward a row of wheezing, pale children in the makeshift infirmary. If you hadn't brought this, they wouldn't have made it to morning. How did you even get through? She asked. Dr. Lin simply glanced toward Logan, who was checking a crate of equipment. We had the right person behind the wheel. As the medical teams got to work, Logan found himself drifting toward the school. Inside, dozens of kids sat on mats, eyes wide, bodies huddled together for warmth. A young teacher was reading aloud from a picture book, trying to distract them from the chaos outside. Logan stood silently in the doorway, frozen by a wave of memories. Another school. Other children. A mission that had ended too late. Then a little girl spotted him and gave a small, hesitant wave. Logan stepped forward, instinct guiding him. He knelt beside her. Are you a soldier? She asked in perfect English. He hesitated. No, he said softly. Just someone who delivers things. You brought the medicine for my brother, the girl said, her voice hopeful. He was really sick. Is he going to be okay? Before Logan could even respond, she gave a confident nod. The doctor said he'll be fine, now that you came. Something shifted deep within Logan. The heavy burden he'd carried for the past 5 years, grief, guilt, silence, seemed to ease for the first time. Later that evening, with the worst of the storm finally behind them, Lieutenant Kim found Logan seated alone on the school's front steps. No way we're getting back anytime soon, Kim said, dropping down beside him. Roads will be out for days. Lucky we made it here when we did. Logan nodded, saying nothing. The rain had slowed, but the weight of everything lingered. Kim's tone softened. While we still had a satellite connection, I did some digging. Logan turned his head slightly. Logan Hayes. Master Sergeant. U.S. Army Transportation Corps. 20 years in. Specialized in operating extreme terrain vehicles. He paused, letting the words settle. Retired 5 years ago. After Afghanistan. Logan stared into the distance. That kind of information isn't public. I've got clearance, Kim replied. And I was curious. Not every civilian drives an LVSR like it's an extension of their body. Kim gave him a long look. Kunar Province. That mission, it's why you left, isn't it? Logan's jaw clenched. That's classified. Not all of it, Kim said gently. Your unit was trying to reach a village ahead of a Taliban assault. Landslides delayed you. When you finally got there. We were too late, Logan interrupted, his voice flat. We found 27 kids. None of them made it. Kim was quiet for a moment. The report also says you pulled 14 others out of a root cellar. Without your team, they'd be dead too. We should have been faster, Logan muttered. We should have planned better. I was in charge of the route. It was on me. Kim didn't try to argue. He let the silence stretch before speaking again. Today you found a route no one else could. You got 32 kids to safety. 17 more at the clinic. They're alive because you didn't give up. Logan finally looked over at him. All I did was deliver supplies. Same thing I've been doing for 5 years. No, Kim said with quiet conviction. Today, you were a soldier again. And a damn fine one. 3 days passed. The floodwaters finally began to pull back, and more help arrived. Helicopters touched down in the plaza, bringing fresh supplies and reinforcements. But among the cargo was something unexpected, ranking officers from both the Philippine Army and U.S. military. Logan had spent the time helping wherever he could, rebuilding damaged homes, clearing debris, staying out of the spotlight. He had every intention of slipping back to Molina once the roads reopened. He was hauling rubble into a wheelbarrow when Sergeant Ramos approached. "Mr. Hayes, they're asking for you in the plaza." Logan brushed the dirt from his hands. "Any idea why?" "You'll see, sir." In the town center, a small gathering had formed. The village leader stood alongside several uniformed officers, offering thanks to the military for their support. Logan tried to blend in at the back of the crowd, but Lieutenant Kim spotted him and waved him forward. Reluctantly, Logan stepped up, instantly noting the insignia on the 2 men at the front, a colonel from the Philippine Army, and a U.S. Army general. "Mr. Hayes," the colonel greeted warmly. "Or should I say, Master Sergeant Hayes?" Logan tensed slightly. "Just Logan is fine, sir." The colonel smiled. "Not today. Today, we honor you properly." Turning to face the villagers, he raised his voice so all could hear. "This man is far more than a local delivery driver. He's a highly trained veteran who risked his life to deliver critical supplies to San Miguel, when all other roads were blocked and hope was fading." Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Logan caught sight of Anna, the shopkeeper, her mouth slightly open in disbelief. Paolo from the hardware store looked equally stunned. The U.S. general stepped forward. "Master Sergeant Hayes served the United States Army with distinction for 2 decades, honing skills that proved vital during this crisis. He answered the call even after leaving the service, acting with courage and expertise when it mattered most. That is the definition of honor." Logan shifted uneasily under the weight of their words. Anyone would have helped, if they could. But no one else could, the colonel replied firmly. That vehicle requires training few possess. And without your knowledge, this village would have faced tragedy. The village leader stepped forward, holding a small wooden plaque in both hands. "San Miguel will never forget what you did for us," he said, offering it to Logan. "You're part of this family now." Just then, a rustle moved through the crowd. At the back, the little girl from the school came forward, holding her younger brother's hand. It was the boy who had been fighting to breathe when they first arrived. "Mr. Logan," she called brightly. "Look, Liam's better." The boy was still pale but steady on his feet, his breathing normal. He stepped up shyly, holding something clutched in his hand. "Thank you for saving me," he said, and extended a crayon drawing. Logan knelt to accept it. The picture showed a towering green truck scaling a mountain road. Inside were smiling stick figures, and behind the wheel, one was labeled simply, "Hero Driver." Something inside Logan cracked wide open. It was like a floodgate had finally given way, 5 years of guilt and unspoken sorrow pouring out all at once. His eyes welled up as he stared at the child's drawing, the simple lines blurring into the memory of faces he had lost long ago. "I was just the driver," he said, voice barely steady. The general's voice was quiet, but firm. "That's what heroes always say." A week later, Logan stood on his porch overlooking the harbor in Malino. The typhoon had left scars on the town, but the signs of recovery were everywhere, roofs being patched, roads cleared, people helping one another. His delivery truck was parked out front, cleaned and ready for another day's work. But something had shifted. The way people looked at him now had changed. Not just with respect, but with something more. A warmth. An openness. A shared sense of knowing. The part of himself he'd kept hidden for so long, the soldier he'd buried, was no longer a secret. And instead of isolating him, it had connected him to the community he'd quietly served all these years. Inside his house, Logan opened the footlocker he hadn't touched in 5 years. Inside were the artifacts of another life, service medals, faded photographs, and the folded flag from his retirement. He gently added 2 new items to the collection. A child's drawing in crayon. And a wooden plaque etched with the words, "San Miguel will always remember." Then the phone rang. It was Sergeant Ramos. "Mr. Hayes, just wanted to let you know, the Philippine Army's putting together a new disaster response training program. They're hoping you'll come on board. Consultant work. Teaching others what you know. Helping prepare for what's coming next." Logan stood silently, gazing out at the water. He hadn't expected the call. But something in him had been waiting for it all the same. "I'll think about it," he said quietly. A short time later, the low rumble of an engine caught his attention. A familiar green military vehicle pulled into view. Lieutenant Kim stepped out, now dressed in civilian clothes, and walked up the steps. "Nice view," he said, leaning on the porch railing. "Beats the hell out of some of the places I've been posted," Logan replied with a faint grin. Kim looked over at him. "So, you going to take the job? The training program?" Logan didn't answer immediately. He watched the fishing boats drift out toward the horizon, the sky streaked with the warm colors of a setting sun. "I've spent the last 5 years trying to forget who I used to be," he said slowly. "Running from ghosts." He paused, breathing in the salt air. "But I'm starting to think, maybe some ghosts aren't meant to be outrun. Maybe they just need to be faced. And maybe the best way to put them to rest, is to step up when it counts." Kim gave a thoughtful nod and gestured toward the harbor. "You know, my grandfather flew cargo planes in World War II. Used to tell me the most important thing he ever delivered wasn't food or ammo, it was hope." Logan thought of the children back in San Miguel. Of Liam, breathing easily because the medicine had arrived in time. Of that quiet, steady feeling that had come over him the moment he stopped hiding and started helping again. "Sounds like your grandfather was a wise man." He also said, Kim added, "the best way to honor the ones we lost is to keep showing up for the ones we still can." Logan ran a thumb along the edge of the crayon drawing now pinned to the wall inside. "I don't know if I'm ready to wear a uniform again." "You don't have to," Kim said. "Just be who you've always been, the guy who shows up. The one who knows how to get through when no one else can." As the last light of day cast golden reflections across the water, Logan made his choice. Some deliveries, you just can't say no to. "I'll do it," he said softly. Kim smiled. "I figured you would." The next morning, Logan climbed back into his old delivery truck and set off on his usual route. To most folks, he probably looked the same, just the quiet American expat with the steady hands and the dependable schedule. But to Logan, the road looked different now. It wasn't just about mangoes or building supplies anymore. It was a thread. A lifeline. A connection between people who might one day meet each other again. The faces of children had replaced old shadows in his mind. The weight of regret had finally found balance in purpose. And he understood something now, something simple and true. Sometimes, being just the driver is exactly what the world needs most. Enjoyed this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-world inspired tales. Check out the next video queued up for you, we think you'll love it. See you next time.